Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me here. You're probably all flagging a little bit. It's late in the day, or I need to get to the bar, ready for dinner, whatever else. So do appreciate you joining me here just to listen about my experiences for the last 5 years. And so what this presentation is the story of why I chose the path that I did, how come I decided to go down the EV route, some of the history of the family, and most importantly for you guys, is there a viable business model in choosing to repair and offer EV repairs, and what does doing EVs actually mean from our real-world experience? So, yes, I've been a technician for 27 years now. Button's a bit sticky. Right, that one, stay. Right, yeah, so I joined my family business 24 years ago as a freshly qualified apprentice, and then worked with my dad, my uncle, my auntie, proper family business in a back street of Cheltenham. And I stayed on top of the change from points and condensers to electronic ignition, and then when diagnostics come in, so I was the constant driver of newest technologies that were coming into the business. And I did my ATA, Master Tech, and I just thought, well, what's next? What's the next thing that's going to be testing us as a business? And what's the future for the family business going to happen? I'm sure many of you are thinking the same thing at the moment. And so EV was just starting to be about, and I wanted to understand that a bit more. I found it quite exciting. I went to a number of main dealers to try and we were looking at buying a car because I thought that's quite a good way of getting on the ladder, just buy it and run it locally and understand a bit more from it. And the main dealers didn't have a clue. They didn't want to sell the car. They didn't know what they had no idea. It became a very frustrating experience because I wanted a car and they weren't prepared to sell me one. And I thought, I love this technology. Why is no one trying to sell it and really promote it? So I wanted to understand it. It just made me hungrier to know more and more about it. The picture that you can see on the right-hand side of the Tesla, I hired that from a company and drove the car around for the weekend and just loved the whole experience. And they actually left that car with me and said, well, you can rent it out and you can be our Southwest branch. So I started looking at some numbers. There we go. Of what was actually going to happen within our industry, and saw that EV was actually going to be, or electrification of the drivetrain was going to be something that we all going to have to be involved with and have to understand and know and learn about. So really threw ourselves into it. And the first slide was showing the two company names. We've got the traditional business that had been going. My grandfather started it 60 years ago, and I created Cleevely EV to run alongside it in 2018 because I didn't want to alienate my customer base. I wanted to keep the two things separate because if I'd chosen the wrong thing, I didn't want it to take down my family business. I didn't want to be the generation that fucked it all up. So we created a separate business to, first and foremost, it was that the Cleevely EV is an EV promotional business. It was there to have that rental car and get people to understand and enjoy and know what it was like to run an electric vehicle. Because getting bums in seats was really important to the whole EV experience. Because when you drive one, you get to understand it a bit more and you get to love it a bit more. That is a picture of mine and Claire's house. We've had solar on our house for 15 years. So I was already passionate about renewables and about creating our own energy, and having the electric car was part of that as well. So for me, it wasn't too big a step into the unknown. It was something that I was sort of prepared for anyway. I understood how solar worked, and I realized that I could make my own fuel and run this car very, very cheaply and very economically. It also gave me the opportunity to understand about charging, and I put the key learning points on some of the slides. Understanding charging infrastructure, understanding how the cars work, how the cars charge, what it means to go out and have a rapid charge or a slow charge, and was an important step for me to actually be able to tell the customers about it, to be able to to talk to them when they brought their cars in, what the real life experience of running these vehicles is all about. So we set up the business in 2018, as I said, and we got a couple of courtesy cars that were full electric as well. And I didn't realize at the time, it's only reflecting on it through these last couple of years and having to make presentations and things, how much these courtesy cars really do enhance our business and our customers' experience. It's been very vital, and we use these for our ICE customers as well. So we're still working on petrol and diesels. I'll come on to some facts and figures and numbers later. But we're working on petrols and diesel, and we put our ICE customers into these EVs, and they get to drive them. They get to learn a little bit about them. They get to understand range anxiety as well. It's a thing. So if anyone's thinking of going down this route, then I would recommend getting electric courtesy cars, or if you have courtesy cars now, consider making them electric as part of an introduction into your own business, so your guys understand it, your techs understand it, staff understand it, you know what it's about to charge a car, you know how cheap it is to run the car, and what they're like to drive, and start to feed that thought process into your customers' minds, what it's like to have an EV and to own it and to run it, and it's showing your customers then that you are knowledgeable, or that you're happy to have EVs within the workshop. It was a really good point. I haven't gone too much into the sort of whys and wherefores, because I kind of feel like most of the people in this room would have heard my story, so I'm not going to go too mad into that. But what we did with these courtesy cars and how we got in front of customers was to actually just really put ourselves out there. The EV world, or the community, certainly 5-6 years ago when I started doing this, was quite a small little bubble, and quite a geeky little bubble too. The kind of person that owns an EV is either somebody who's interested in the technology, an environmentalist, or somebody who just wanted to save a little bit of money. They were the three groups of people that were driving EVs back when we started. And they met up, and they chatted, and they compared their range figures, and their battery sizes, and all those kinds of geeky things. But what they loved, and the way we could get in front of them, was we were part of that bubble. We went there, and we spoke about the battery sizes. We learned about their problems, and we stood there with them. And we shared that whole experience. That is one of the biggest marketing benefits that we've ever done, is just to go there and say, well, yeah, we'll fix your car, but we also run them, we understand them, we are one of you lot, just not so geeky. But one thing that I didn't get prepared for was when the customer comes in and how much they really knew. And I'm using past tense now because the modern EV owner tends to just use it as a car and not care so much. EVs have come a long way in the last few years. Battery ranges and sizes have increased. It's a lot easier to run an EV. But when you're running something like our little courtesy cars that had a 50, 60 mile range, you had to eke out all of the range that you could. You had to understand your battery. You had to treat it. And some of these customers were coming, quoting charging figures at us, quoting charging times and capacities. And understanding all that was a very key and very quick learning curve that we had to do. The picture in the bottom right of that slide is that we opened our workshop doors up to EV owners and said to come along, have one of your geek meets, club meets at our place, and we'll stand and talk to you all day about it, and you can understand that we're part of the community as well. So again, if you're looking at bringing more EV work into your workshop, then have a look at these local clubs. There are EV groups in every corner of the country, and maybe invite them in. Get them to understand your business and how you want to help them. a lot of garages will come to me and they'll say, well, none of our customers have got EVs, so we're not really seeing any. I've got guys that have been trained and they're sat here not seeing EVs. But unless you shout about it, you won't see anybody. We had the backstreet garage, as I showed you in the picture before, but in 2018 as well, we moved into these bigger units, and thank God we did. Another thing is you need space with these EVs. Currently, we've got 11 dead EVs waiting for diagnostic work sat around the site, and the ones that we have diagnosed, we end up inevitably waiting for parts for. So having space has been really important for us, and I was very grateful that we moved into this bigger unit when we did. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had the space that we needed to be able to run the business that we do now. You can see I've invested hugely in solar on a building that isn't ours as well, but it's a nice touch that we've added, that we will charge our customers' cars if we're producing an excess and sending it back to the grid rather than do that. It's a nice touch to have solar, charge the car, customer comes to pick the car up with more range than they dropped it off with. It's just a little value add that we have. And the picture of the building on the far right-hand side, so the workshop's on the left, and on the right-hand side is a EV showroom. So for the first time, well, yeah, our business has never sold cars before, but we chose to go into buying and selling used EVs as an important part of the whole EV promotional part of the business. And that's working really well as well. Yeah, and the two are kind of going hand in hand. So now we're getting ICE customers just walking next door into our showroom, buying an EV, and then it just filters back. We retain them as a customer. I'm going to tell my story. I'm not saying that this is the right way and everyone has to go this way to be successful in embracing EV into your workshop. Just telling my story. You pick out and choose the things that are relevant for your own business model and things that may work. But certainly, we've really grown in this department and expanded from a garage that had 4 techs to now having 6 techs and 3 front of house. And so it's been a very quick growth period for us just because of the sheer amount of work that has been coming through the door. You can see at the top of on the right-hand side that we've got a room for customers to sit in. That's been a really important thing as well. Just so if you an EV customer, we were finding because they were traveling distance for their service and repairs, would often just wait on site with us, and we still have it now. So having a spare place to work is really appreciated by our customer base. I get asked all the time, what kind of investment is required? It must cost thousands and thousands of pounds to become an EV workshop. Well, we've kind of done it differently, and we've only invested in the kit and bought the kit as and when we've needed to. Some of the tool companies will show you cabinets of insulated tools, replacing everything in your Snap-on toolbox with an insulated tool. We've never found that necessary. We've got a set of basic insulated tools that we work inside a battery with as and when we need to. But what we've learned is that you don't need to spend thousands and thousands of pounds. The most important kit, having good PPE, having a good insulation tester, voltmeters, and having a battery lifting table and a basic set of insulated tools is what we've really got away with, and we still run with now, all these years later. You can see in the picture that we've got a forklift, and that is really, really helpful. But you don't have to have a forklift if you haven't got space, but we have found that really helpful for the battery swapping that we've done. I don't want it to sound like batteries are massively unreliable. They're not. They're generally pretty good. But we've done a bit of battery swapping on the first generation of Nissan Leafs as they're getting 10 years old and things now. So there are specialist tools required, and I'm sure everyone is aware of Hevra So HEVRA is the Hybrid Electric Vehicle Repair Alliance. It's a group of independent garages, like the Garage Hive community and network, but the garages that are registered for EV repairs. And that drives a lot of work. The HEVRA network's really worked for us. Pete, who set it up, was, like me, an EV promotional kind of guy, and we met at a EV car meet. And when he set HEVRA up, and that HEVRA has become a strong name within the EV community for quality car repairs. And I know Cedar are on there, as are quite a few garages that are in the room, but they've got a number of specialist tools that can be loaned out to member garages and just save you some of that investment yourself. So as I touched on a little bit earlier, you really need to shout about it. If you're going to work on EVs, have all the kit, have the training, understand the cars, but then promote yourself. The one thing I did that really kicked this off as we were doing it was that I stood up in front of, on the owners groups, on Facebook and various other things like that, and said, bring your car to us, we'll fix it. Don't take it to the main dealer, we'll look after you. And people did. They really did, in the droves. So don't hide behind a little add-on to your website. Just get out there and say, in your area, I am the local EV specialist. I want to see your cars. I want to fix them. Because the only way you're actually going to understand how to fix them and what it takes is to actually get these cars in through the door. There's no amount of theory that will be able to teach you that. And the IMI level 3 and 4 qualifications, as good as they are, they don't teach you what you will see coming through the door at work. We do a huge amount of servicing. I mean, the couple of photos that are on there are a pretty standard day at our place, really. We're seeing a number of EVs through the door, and my guys have made the transition very easily to servicing and repairing and maintaining electric vehicles over ICE, and they're chopping and changing all day long. Car is a car to them, they're not bothered. The reason I've got the Tesla Owners Group picture on there is because that was another key sort of win for us, is we bought the Tesla to carry on the rental, and we've still got that rental car now, but it put us in front of a whole community, and we've become sort of the recommended repairer within the Tesla Owners Group. And it's brilliant, and day to day it still surprises me how far people will come to us. So you'll be familiar with the heat map for postcode analysis within your Power BIs, and this is ours. So for a little family business in Cheltenham to be attracting people from hundreds of miles away, we're really, really proud of it. We have a lot of local customers, yes, but we have a number of customers. A guy in last week who had just driven 3 hours from somewhere, and it's not unusual, really, and they're grateful to come and sit on site and have their car repaired by somebody who shouts about being knowledgeable, that owns the car themselves, and that they know we'll look after them, and we work hard on maintaining our reputation within the community and getting good feedback and good NPS scores. So has all the effort been worthwhile? So pulling some figures off our Power BI. So we've only been with Garage Hive since April 22, so it's been about 18 months now. When we first started, so that's the total since April 22, 32% electric. That's not bad for 18 months worth. It's always surprised me how little hybrid work we actually do. I don't know why. I maybe haven't targeted enough hybrid owners groups. Yeah, we just get more BEVs brought to us than anything else. But I've certainly noticed in the last few months that things with EV have been ramping up. We're seeing more through the doors. I think it's to do with the number of EVs that were sold in 2020, or Model 3s now, especially the slide that I showed you before, had 4 Model 3s all in a row being worked on. They're now due MOTs. They're being defleeted from leasing, being bought by private owners. We're selling them through our showroom. And the numbers are ramping up. So what does that mean? So during August, our EV work went up to 40%. So day to day, seeing 40% EV work through our doors. I'm very happy with. It's interesting. It is interesting. So what kind of makes are we working on? Not surprisingly, we see a huge amount of Tesla. Are they as crap as everyone says? Meh. I own one. My wife's got one. They're pretty good cars. But an earlier Model S is a pretty ropey car, but the Model 3s, Model Ys. Tesla really impressed me because what they got wrong, they fixed very quickly in their production, and they're constantly improving their technology. And my 2022 Model Y performance is probably the best car I've ever owned. Anyway, digress. And we have a huge proportion of Renault and Nissan in that graph as well, which is down to Leaf and Zoe. Just to compare to the last slide, because I thought we'd been seeing more EVs in the last few months. So how was it during August? A quarter of our cars that come in were Tesla. It's, yeah, and it's growing all the time. Alex is loving it. I was really excited to share this next slide with you. So I had a look at Jobcard analysis so this is the whole 18 months that we've been with Garage Hive. And just following that electric line, you can see it overtake diesel, and then eventually overtaking petrol as well, with the amount of posted work that we do on EVs. We don't really carry on with the chasing now into the owners groups and things like that. It's now done for us by the owners that have had a good experience, that understand our business model, that appreciate what we do. And if you have a look on owners groups on Facebook, you'll usually find that if there's ever a problem, that our name is the first one that's mentioned, or Hevra, which is a huge compliment. I don't think it's replicatable for everyone in this room, but I also think that as EV adoption grows, those people are going to stop traveling the distance they do to get to us, and they're going to find their local EV specialists. It could be any one of you guys. But our customers will come back to being more local as it was traditionally. I think it's probably just a little bit of a crazy period that we're in, that we stuck our hands up first and said that we would do something that nobody else in the country was doing. Some more stats. So future job card analysis this is. And you can see there the quantity of EV servicing labour or standard labour based on the other repairs that have been booked in. I thought that was really, really interesting, the sheer amount of EV work that we've got coming in through the door. And you can see booking by labour hours that 300 hours of that is EV work, which is, it's a lot. It's a lot. I kind of feel like I'm stood up here showing off, but I wanted to just share the numbers. The numbers are there in the Power BI. I wanted to share where, if you start early enough and you start beating the drum, that you can be at this point maybe yourselves in 5-6 years' time if you want to. I thought let's have a look at some figures as well. So for electric, our NPS score is higher. Customers by and large are happier. there's 300 less EV jobs than petrol over that time. So this is the whole 18 months that we've been using Garage Hive for. And we're more efficient on those jobs. That's because we've learned what we need to do and what we need to sell and what we can upsell as well. We've sold more EV hours. I was thinking about why that was. I think it's down to the fact that because customers are traveling distance to us, they're having their MOT done, they're having their annual service done if they choose to, which is another worrying thing that we were talking about earlier, that EV owners see an MOT as a service. They don't necessarily think that because they haven't got an oil change to be done on an engine that they need their car serviced. So that's a fight that we're going to have to do as an industry over the coming years to be able to make money out of it. But because they're staying on site, because they are with us for the day, it's their sort of annual car trip, and they'll have the MOT, they'll have any advisories that we list are actually done on that day. They will spend the money, and then that's that for the year. So you can see that we sell more labor and items, and that our average invoice value and profit is higher than petrol and diesel. The Tesla Model S is our highest earning vehicle of everything that we look after. The highest invoice value, most profitable of everything we look after. But our parts profit is lower, and that's something that actually analysing the data for this presentation made me realise I need to work on. It's kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, because I've got the workshop that is under Motor's name is buying the parts from my EV company, so it's just, yeah, ripping. Yeah, okay, we'll do that, yeah. I'm probably paying more off of my own company than you are. Yeah, just wanted to share some figures that there is money to be made out of this if you do it the right way and if you arm yourself and you position yourself correctly. So what kind of work are we actually doing? It's still a car. It's a car at the end of the day. It's got a different drivetrain, but it's still got everything else that we know and love and we'd like to change and we can make money on. So the brakes, particularly rusty brakes, are because the regen's so strong in an EV that the customers might not touch the brakes. I don't need to I can get to and from work with never braking in my car. The regen's so strong in it. And the majority of MOT failures that we're seeing are due to brake fluctuation. So the brakes have got rusty, running them through the rollers, they're all over the place because they've got rusty. Too late to skim them, you're not going to get that rust out. So pads and discs, changing them pretty frequently. That's a really good moneymaker for us. Just because it's an EV and they're not braking, they're actually seizing up and they're failing that way. Tesla door handles is quite an interesting one. They're a pain in the backside, but they break because the Model S door handle will present out to the owner. So that's quite a common failure. And suspension work. EVs are heavy cars, so they wear suspension out pretty quickly. I'm sure you've all seen the Tesla Model S with a slightly weird-looking DRL. You go through the VTS on the MOT. Is it 2018? Can I fail it on it? Is it 50%? We actually make good money fixing those headlights now. We've did some R&D on it, because a new headlight from Tesla is 1,400 quid just for that DRL failure. So we've worked our own repair for that, and customers, again, will travel the country to save themselves £1,000 on having a headlight repair. But they're all the things that you're familiar with as well. So we've got electrical connection faults. So the bottom right one is a Zoe that wasn't charging. So just a burnt out earth terminal. Nothing too tricky, fairly straightforward. The one next to it, to the left of it, was a a Nissan Leaf that wasn't communicating with the battery anymore. It's just a corroded wire. See them all the time, don't we? So it's nothing too scary. A huge proportion of our work is just servicing and repairing the car. But we get it because everyone else is too scared to. There are, of course, bigger jobs to get involved with. So taking drive motors apart and changing fuses in inverters. So the job on the right-hand side, that is, so that's a BMW i3. If the aircon or the heating stops, they're on the same fuse. BMW will tell you that it needs to have a whole inverter. They won't tell you that there's a fuse inside that you can actually buy from RS Components that is just a household 3-phase fuse. We now keep that part in stock. And that was one of the first ones I actually did, where I took the whole drive motor out to get the inverter off, but I can now do it in situ. Can you, Matt? Have you done these yet?
Yeah, we've done them in situ.
Oh, right. It's a little bit fiddly, but you can do it in situ. Yeah. Battery work as well. So the image on the top left is a Nissan Leaf 40 kilowatt hour pack. Nissan squeezed as much into that pack. It's the same size casing as the original 24 was 10 years ago, but they've nearly doubled the capacity by squeezing more in. But the Nissan Leaf battery pack doesn't have any thermal management, so the cells get really hot. And because the back stack of 12 are stood up on their side, that energy, because they're prismatic cells, they're little pouches that they will expand with voltage when they're charged as well, that energy needs to go somewhere, and they end up bending the modules and damaging the cells. So the picture to the right of it was an insulation error where one of the bags actually split and was leaking voltage to the casing. It's all nice and clean work. It's best part of a day, out and back in, and it's just nuts and bolts. So it's really enjoyable work to be doing and just to get involved with. But one thing we were really, really struggling with, and back to the steering and suspension as well, is where do we get the bits from? How do we replace components when nobody sells the bits? We work closely with our local GSF, which is across the road, to try and find Tesla components, specifically at the time, from their parts catalogue, and nobody made them, nobody did them. So I spent a bit of time searching the globe to find out how we could stop the horrible situation we're in. We were having people traveling a couple of hours to us. We'd MOT their car and then give them a failure sheet and say, sorry, we can't get that suspension component, or we haven't got the pads on the shelf or the discs or something. So I found a supplier. And something that I never envisaged 6 years ago when we started this was that we ended up having to create our own parts department in order to service our own workshop. Kind of in the way that I do things, it's either go big or go home. So we now have 120 grand's worth of stock on site and a web shop and some good trade customers already. So if anyone ever has any EVs in and you are struggling for parts, there's a good chance we've probably got it on the shelf. And we would have already seen it, and then we'll know where you can get it from. And that includes battery cells and things as well, certainly for Nissan Leaf, but a whole range of steering, suspension, braking components, all carried in and available next day delivery. That was something I never expected to have to do, but was sort of fundamental to the kind of business that EV was bringing in. It's about convenience for the customer. So Alex touched on in his presentation earlier about becoming more of a fast fit type operation where it's in, you do the job, you have the bits on site, and it's back out the other end, almost a conveyor belt, and the customer sat there waiting. And I do, to a certain degree, think that that's where that we'll be heading in our trade, certainly with EV. And it's not all terrible. EVs do still need oil changes. Drive units have oil in them, and they do need to be changed regularly because of the torque from the motor. It wears out tyres. Yes, we've got thousands of pounds worth of tyres and 2 tyre bays within our workshop now, just to keep up with the amount of tyres that we are replacing. But yeah, it's a different way of working, and the torque of an EV is also damaging the drive unit oil. So changing that oil is important, but the customers don't understand that. They don't get it. So it's our job to educate them what servicing is all about and how it can keep their car reliable and keep them using it safely. So why am I sharing this? Why am I sharing this? Well, 27 years I've been in this trade, and it's supported me really, really well, and it's supported my family through 60 years and 3 generations so far. I love this trade, and we've learned something. We've learned lots in the last 5-6 years that really I want everyone to be able to have a piece of as well. We've got way too much work as it is, but I know that there's a huge opportunity for the independent aftermarket here with EV. With the franchise dealer networks just so bad at repairing things and just looking after people, the opportunity is ours to grasp and to run with and to be the first choice for the EV driver, that we can look after their vehicles and they don't need to take them back to the main dealers. There's this massive, massive opportunity for us all. And that's kind of what I'm dedicating my time to, and that's why I'm happy to stand up and speak and share the figures, is that you can be the EV specialist in your area, in your town, in your county, and there's more and more work coming all the time. And it can be profitable if you set up the right way and you approach it with the right attitude and you learn and you understand it. So on top of that, what we've decided to do is open up our premises and our experiences and share that with everyone. So we do run now some training courses what is it to run an EV workshop. But we also have an IMI trainer, so you can come and do your level 2, 3, and 4 at our workplace in the classroom upstairs. You can see it there on the right, all set up for training. And actually sort of be on site. The delegates that have come and done it so far, the feedback is that they find it really motivational, that they're at a workshop and they can see it working day in, day out with EVs coming in and being involved in our day-to-day, and they're training on site and they can see components led around the workshop and the cars coming in. So, yes, I just wanted to strengthen the aftermarket and for us all to profit from what I've found to be a very enjoyable experience for the last 5 years. It's been hard. Not all jobs are perfect. But there is money to be made, and hopefully you can see that I've proven that today. So, thank you very much.